You're listening to Don't IEP Alone with special education advocate Lisa Lightner. For more information about Lisa, the IEP Toolkit, and more ways we can help you in your process, go to adayinourshoes.com. Now back to the show with your host, Lisa.
Hello again. This is Lisa Lightner from the Don't IEP Alone podcast. Please make sure that you visit my sites, dontiepalone.com and adayinourshoes.com. Listen, my simple little podcast about IEPs, I ran a little bit long, my previous episode, so I wanted to do kind of like a follow-up on why it matters to contact your representatives even when it feels hopeless, even when you feel like you're a tiny blue dot in a giant red state, and you think it's not going to matter. I am here to tell you that I have heard over and over and over again from legislators at all levels that yes, it matters. It especially matters when you're a constituent. And a constituent means you can vote for that person. It's not ever really recommended that you call people that you cannot vote for. Senator Casey's office once told me that they didn't even log those calls. If someone called outside of Pennsylvania, they would listen, but they didn't even keep track. They're for the most part, they're genuinely only interested in hearing from their constituents. But there have been numerous studies done that show us that elected officials pay attention to calls and letters from their own district, even in safe seats, right? So when you call, and for those of you who have called, you know they ask you your name, they usually ask you your zip code, and then they log your opinion, and those calls do matter. If you want to take it up a notch, instead of just speaking to whoever answers the phone, if you do get a live person, ask to speak to the legislative aide who handles, education, healthcare, veterans, senior citizens, whatever the issue is. Call and ask for that legislative aide. And if they say, "Oh, I'd like to schedule a call with them. I'd like to schedule a visit with them. Can you give me their email address so that I may reach out to them and see what you can do?" Because those are the folks, our congressmen, women, and senators, they don't know everything about every single issue. They have staff who are experts in healthcare policy, experts in education policy, and so on and so on and so on. And those are the people who they reach out to and talk with when they're developing policy and opinions and deciding how to vote and how this is going to affect their constituents. So it does matter. Their stories, your personal stories do carry weight. Your story could be the one that gets on their radar. I have particularly found this out when Kevin was little. We got invited a lot of places. As we all know, in our society, everybody loves the cute little autistic kid who's just a little bit quirky. When that same person is older with facial hair and on and on and on, we're not invited to as many events as when he was little. And that's just how it works, because it's like, oh, look at this little kid. How can you be taking away his health care? But your story might be the one that gets on their radar. So, tell your story. Persistence pays. If you're going to change a representative's mind on a big partisan vote, that's going to take time. It's not going to happen in one call or one email. But consistent outreach, it builds pressure. And sometimes what makes them shift a vote, or it'll make them stay quiet and maybe not co-sponsor a bill, or maybe not be very vocal in their support of it, or they may campaign themselves to get some perks for their own state or their own district in that bill, right? For as much grief as Lisa Murkowski took for getting her state exempted from the Medicaid cuts, I mean, you can't fault her for being clever, right? Like, she knew the Medicaid cuts were bad, and she tried to not, escape them in her state. So you just don't know, again, what your calls and what your emails are going to mean. Written communication and your voting history matter more than scripted phone calls and scripted emails. When I was trained by numerous lobbying groups, they have these things called, they call them barriers to participation. And it's, if you're going to reach out to a legislator, what are your barriers to participation? And whether it's the knowledge, money, time, comfort level, all those different things. However many barriers you cross adds that much more weight to your opinion. Okay? So if you get one of those email things that says, hey, just click here and we'll send an email to your congressman. Like, okay. I mean, I guess that's better than doing nothing. A retweet, something like that. Sharing a Facebook post is maybe better than doing nothing. But on the scale of, barriers to participation, that's very low. All you had to do was click, right? And then it goes up from there, right? If you call, and these staffers and aides, all they do all day long is answer the phone and read these emails. So they know when somebody has sent out a script, and when they start to see these patterns. So you want to be original. Think of it as a spectrum or a continuum, if you would, which is something we talk a lot about in the special needs world. But reading a script over the phone that takes you 2 minutes to do is better than nothing, or it's better than not calling at all. But what would be even better is, taking 5 minutes to collect your thoughts and doing an original email to, voice your concerns and voice your thoughts. A handwritten letter or card with a return address carries much more credibility than scripted phone calls and emails. It just does. Like, look, I know how easy it is to go to the website, use the drop-down bars to pick your name, address, all that stuff. But what carries a lot more weight, honestly, is handwritten with a return address, and especially if you have a voting history. They're going to look you up, and if they see that you vote every election like I do, it matters. It matters. So even in, you can persuade or at least humanize the issue. These people are not robots, even though it feels like it some days. The media has worked very diligently at getting us to hate each other and getting us to, dehumanize. For as much as we accuse folks of, like dehumanizing immigrants, dehumanizing the disabled, we have done the same in dehumanizing them. But these people are human, and you can sometimes persuade and humanize the issue. It can make a difference over time. It can help shift their views, and so on and so on. Okay? It does work. It's why they don't want you doing it. Because they don't want to listen to their constituents. They want to be able to vote for whatever they want for with no accountability, no feedback, no pushback. Let's not do that. Okay? So enjoy the rest of your day. Again, please visit Don't IEP Alone and adayinourshoes.com. I hope you're having a great July.
Thank you for listening to Don't IEP Alone with Special Education Advocate Lisa Lightner. We're so glad you've joined us and would love to connect with you outside of the show. For more information about Lisa, the IEP Toolkit, and more ways we can help you in your process, go to adayinourshoes.com. From self-care tips to common IEP mistakes, there's even more to explore. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast and subscribe to never miss an episode. Until next time, don't IEP alone, and you don't have to.